and welcome to the Community Show. I'm Hari Berzins, and I'm here with Kat Johnson, and we're at Fields Edge Farm in Floyd, Virginia. Thanks for being with us, Kat.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, it's so nice to be here. What a beautiful, beautiful farm, and what a knowledgeable farmer you are.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you. That's so sweet of you.
And I've really enjoyed, I've been here for a couple hours just watching them harvest and listening to them chat in the field, and it's just inspiring.
There's an old kind of tomato that was grown in this area, and they actually referred to it as Tommy Toes.
Oh.
Which, yeah, it took me a while to realize that that was just sort of a funny way of saying tomatoes.
Yeah, I like that. I just heard that term this year.
But apparently they would grow them in between the corn rows, so they did fairly well with some shade. And allegedly were super tasty, and they were like somewhere in the Roma tomato size from what I've been reading. And so I've been itching to get my hands on some seed.
Yeah. How'd you find out about it? Do you know someone that's growing that?
I don't even remember how I first heard about it. I have found a plant breeder in North Carolina that carries the seed. And it's allegedly, straight back to the, Appalachian homestead days.
Cool. That's super
and I just haven't actually purchased any seed yet.
Is it the So True Seed Company down there? They do all open
might be
stuff.
Are they a more major seed grower? Because this place was a little more rinky-dink. They probably only had maybe 20 or so offerings.
It could be.
Okay.
Yeah, So True Seed is a pretty small company.
All right.
Just Asheville based.
Well, that might be them then. What are you gonna do?
What am I going to do next?
Like next year, are you gonna do any big changes, or do you gotta wait till all the data's in?
Yeah, I definitely want to have some good information on how we did this season, and some time to reflect on, if things went wrong, if we should give them another try and see if things will change that are in our control.
Yeah.
I just really want to keep refining what we do and discovering new relationships with customers and getting to know what they need better. I think getting more in touch with our local Floyd people and what they want to see at the market, or maybe would want to have available for order and picking up straight from the farm. I think that's an area that we could grow into and learn a lot from.
A whole chunk of mycelia here, like all along the surface and growing on some of these.
I was thinking it might be roots, but it could be both.
Yeah, we'll see. Look on these radishes.
Awesome.
Did you inoculate these beds ever, or is this just kind of coming up on its own?
I did, but I have a feeling, what's thriving in the soil most successfully is probably what's native to it. And just making sure to always have something growing that will keep them alive and have the moisture levels right is probably the best thing that we can do to keep the fungal life going. I started to make a KNF preparation. Have you heard of Korean natural farming?
No.
Go collect, I guess what it is native fungal life.
Okay.
And you breed it into a potion. You know, it's sort of like making a tea.
Yeah.
And then you put that on your fields.
Okay.
Because theory being that, you know, fungal life is good, and if it's native to your area, it'll already know how to survive in your climate and proliferate.
So how do you go about collecting it to begin with? Like, you just find decomposing trees and whatnot?
It's pretty straightforward. You make a pot of rice, you put it in a mesh cage
Okay.
in the woods,
All right.
sort of bury it below soil level, and then cover it with all the best fungal life that you find in the woods. You know,
Okay.
go under leaves and collect those big white
Right.
masses.
Yeah.
And then place it on top, and it'll slowly colonize into the rice, an easily digestible food source
Yeah.
that's right there. And then from there you can make a bunch of other next steps. Some of them being for foliar sprays, some for soil inoculants,
Huh.
or even for pests.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
It seems really neat.
But you've never had the time to see it all the way through, or?
Well, I think the thing with mine was it got eaten by mice in the woods, so I need a better cage to bury the rice in. But I love the idea of finding the nutrients that you need to grow the crop on your own land, not just buying it in. One of the books I just read was talking about how soils can almost become fertilizer dependent.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not it's conventional or organic fertilizer, they have the ability to do things, and they're being babied by being given the nutrition out of a bag. They don't do their thing, so definitely not over-fertilizing anything this year, and trying to use cover crops more. And
So they need to become self-sufficient.
yeah, see if we can get all the nutrition that we need just from cover cropping, and we'll see. I'd like for that to be true. It would be good for the business too.
Yeah. And do you have a specific cover crop you use in advance of the garlic? Because isn't garlic a fairly heavy feeder?
Yeah, they say that garlic wants about 150 pounds of nitrogen per acre,
Okay.
more or less. But for some reason it doesn't like to follow a legume.
Huh.
So legume is what would fix your nitrogen in
Right.
the soil. So mostly we've been doing like grass mixes, like with sorghum Sudan in it, pretty heavy, and the millet, oats.
And then you're just getting the nitrogen from the decomposing material?
Yeah, it'll provide a little bit of organic matter.
All right.
Feed the next crop. We're also going to put down some fertilizer for it, and compare with some native soil that wasn't treated that way. And I put mustard in it this year, and daikon radish, which both have that spiciness to it,
Yeah.
which will hopefully scare away nematodes and wireworms. It has a little bit of a fumigation effect.
Yeah. Have you experimented at all with the sun hemp?
Yeah, we have that growing up here.
Oh, so that is what that is
It's
then?
flowering,
Yeah, okay.
I'd never seen it flower. but it's beautiful.
Yeah, mine had pretty poor germination this year, and so the stand just didn't get established that well, and ended up kind of getting outcompeted. So that was a disappointing experiment. Well, good. Well, now I wish it had grown, because it really is pretty.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking, because the flowers almost look sort of like a sweet pea or something.
Oh, I wanted to pick some.
Inspiring to think about how much goes into farming. That, of course, I know a little bit because I have a small garden at my house, but it doesn't always do very well, and I can see why.
Well, same here. We have our share of issues.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was thinking about you two were talking about the soil, and he noticed, was it mycelium?
Mm-hmm.
What's mycelium?
Mycelium is the fungal body, so the below ground portion of a fungal organism, which there are many kinds, like a mushroom.
And that's a good thing to see.
Yeah, we aim for fungal soils rather than bacterial heavy soils. Mycelium can do pretty cool things. They connect to the roots of the plants that we are growing for food, and they expand their root networks many fold so that they have access to more water and nutrients that they trade with the mycelium in the soil. It's amazing.
So there's a whole community under there.
Yeah, it gets way more complicated than that, but I'm just learning about it.
And so when you see something that might look like a mushroom or like a white kind of, I see things like that in my garden sometimes.
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
Yeah, that white fibrous netting in the soil or attaching to roots, that's a really cool thing to see.
Awesome.
Living soil.
Cool.
Yeah.
See, when you don't know, you see these things, I do, and I think, is that good or bad? Should I destroy it or should I
Do I need to kill
encourage
it?
And I imagine there's a lot of that learning for you. Do you have resources that you rely on heavily, or where do you get your knowledge?
Yeah, I think that I've been fortunate enough to work with some pretty incredible farmers and watch them figuring things out and see how they learned. Read a lot of books, and then when we get to a stumper and we don't know the answer to a question, we often reach out to our agricultural extension agents. Mm-hmm. Kelly Scott is who we work with most, and they can often go to the university at Virginia Tech and find an answer that we need for a problem that we're not being able to figure out on our own just from internet searches.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Can you share with us, can you think of one that's happened like that recently?
Yeah, this year we had a really beautiful garlic crop. We grew about 12,000 bulbs of garlic. And there were a couple varieties that were doing a really strange thing in the field. They would sort of have some rot and weird smell at the root zone, and their leaves were dying back yellow really fast. And so with searching and diagnostics, I wasn't able to figure it out. But she sort of got on the case and sent tests to the labs to figure it out.
And what was it?
I think it was inconclusive, that it wasn't a disease or a plant pest of any kind. It might just be that the worms were attracted to those garlics because they may have had a higher sugar content than other varieties. That was as far as we got on that problem.
Okay.
And we culled them out of the field just in case they would spread.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So even with all the resources out there, sometimes there still aren't answers.
Yeah.
And so with farming, I imagine you're always, there's a new pest or a new bacteria or a new whatever virus, right? And that could keep it interesting.
Yeah, it definitely keeps it interesting. And even if you know what it is, sometimes you're just too busy to address it even so. So sometimes the it's a lack of time being able to address it because we get ourselves in pretty deep.
Yeah, speaking of time, how do you manage your time so that you're able to be as effective as you can be, understanding that some things just have to give, right?
Yeah, I think what makes farming somewhat straightforward to me is that you get into a rhythm where if you don't do certain things, you don't end up with an end product to sell. And since we're in the business of growing food for people, it's really clear sometimes, like, is weeding more important or is harvesting more important? Is planting more important? So pretty much number one goes to harvesting, getting the food that's ready to feed people out the door, and getting that cleaned and washed. So that usually comes first.
Yeah.
And then after that, we make sure that what we've planted in the field is cared for so that things are weeded on time. And then after that, we'll start making sure that what we've seeded goes in the field, and then seeding more to follow that up. And then sometimes the weather puts a wrench in that and says, well, this is a rainy day, so it's not a good day for weeding. You're going to do your seeding today. And so we just sort of adjust depending on that too.
Yeah. So that's a lot to keep in your mind at one time. Do you have ways that help you so that you don't have to store it all there?
Yeah, I definitely do not keep our seeding calendar in my mind. That's all in a spreadsheet that comes into a Google Calendar that I can see in the morning when I wake up. Today's the day that we plan to do seeding for 3 beds of kale that'll be harvested in the winter. So I think about all that in the winter time and then forget about it until I get reminded.
Oh, good. Okay. So you are using some technology here in the farm to help you kind of keep with the natural rhythms. It's sort of an interesting blend, I imagine, of nature and technology.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that farmers will always do on paper, but having the technology there to supplement, I think, is the way business is done now. So we have a lot of our resources that are saved in the cloud that we can access and edit or interface with through a farm records keeping app.
So you have an app that is actually for your farm.
Yeah.
Did you call it Farm Records?
Yeah, I just call it the Field's Edge Farm Records app.
and is this an app that you bought somewhere, or?
Well, I created the spreadsheet with the information that I wanted to gather after the end of the season. Things like how much time do we spend caring for radishes, or when did we last spray fertilizer on a crop, and what day did that happen. So I created all these fields, and essentially the app is a bunch of forms that you can fill out and press save, and then that information will go back to a spreadsheet that I can sort through in the wintertime to make sense of our business endeavors and look at budgets on a per crop basis.
So this is an app you sort of created for your own farm.
Yeah, just for our needs and what we want to learn from and track.
The farming of the future right here. Kat Johnson, Field's Edge Farm app.
One day.
That's so cool, yeah. To be able to think about what you need and how can you use the tools you have and we have to, enhance what you're doing. I'm impressed. I think that's awesome. And does that enable you to be in the field and actually enter that data out there?
Yeah, that's something that we are able to do, which is nice because while it's probably not good that I handle my phone with muddy fingers, it's a little bit easier than getting a piece of paper out and a pen out in the weather and then holding on to that. So it makes things a little simpler.
Yeah, so you can be out in the field and not forget all of those details, enter them in, and then when you're somewhere where you actually can work and focus, you can pull all that information up and have it there.
Yeah, and I have my fair share of stressful days, but I think that like one thing is getting that information out of my head and just storing it for later and not feeling like I have to hold on to too much at one time is really good.
Yeah,
because there's so many moving pieces.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I was talking about that earlier, is that there's so many details in a farmer's head at any one time. I imagine, like the weather, what's the weather today, what's it going to be next week, or who's coming in, and all of these moving parts. So that's really cool that you figured out how to utilize the technology to help you.
Yeah, and as much as we can make using technology easy, the more we use it. So we're always trying to figure out the best way to do that for efficiency's sake.
Yeah, and you're using Citizens Fiber, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super fast.
Super fast. The fastest.
Which is great because we don't want to wait around for things to load when we're trying to get into the field and do what we need to do.
Right. Yeah. And it's lightning fast. So you've got what you need, and then it goes where you need it to go, and when you want it, it's there. And so I imagine that really helps. And I was really interested in your hoop house when we were visiting that, and Kat was telling me that it can sense the wind, and can you talk about that? That was really interesting.
Yeah, it's a hoop house structure, which is a passive solar way of growing. So the plants inside are protected with that layer of plastic. But if the sun comes out, it gets very hot in there very fast. So the thermostat inside can sense when it's heating up and then start to ventilate to the right level. Or it can sense the wind picking up and that might be dangerous for the integrity of the structure, and then it will start closing down. So that's really helpful when I'm off-site or there's not someone to be in tune with the weather changes at a given moment, that it's going to take care of itself.
So it sounds like you're really using all of these different technologies to make sure that you're meeting all of the needs of the farm, and also helping yourself to cultivate some calm, because I can imagine if you were in this field and the hoop house is just down the road, but you'd still have to get in a car and drive over there, and to be worried about the weather and always having to pay attention. This way, that piece of technology is just, it's got it for you.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So when you get up in the morning, you mentioned already that you're already looking at your Google Calendar and what's coming. Can you take us from there and kind of just describe your day? I know it's different all the time, but a typical day.
Sure. So every day is different, and maybe what I do on this farm is different than what another farmer would do, but my typical day starts in the morning, glancing at my calendar and seeing what we're due to start seeding or harvesting, and checking for orders in my email inbox, compiling those into a master harvest list for the day. And I try and think about, how long that harvest will take and what other tasks we can accomplish after that's done. And then I arrive at the farm and go in the office. I prepare all the invoices and print the box labels that'll go on the outside of the boxes of produce that's destined to be at the grocery stores or to our customers. And then I get together with the crew and we go out in the field and harvest, bring it in and wash it, hopefully before the heat of the day sets in. And then we'll go to work on other projects after that, weeding or planting, or right now is fall, so we're sort of getting a lot of crops out of the ground and doing a lot of cover crop seeding and that sort of thing.
And you were talking about, when we were out in the field, I got to chat with Kat, about how you prioritize, what takes first priority and then what comes next as far as harvesting, seeding, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's sort of helpful that sometimes those priorities are dictated by the natural process. And first thing that comes first is if there's an order and harvest is ready, we get it packed and in. So that's the first thing that we always put on the top of the list. Keeping those good relationships with our customers and getting the food out when it's perfect is definitely what we want to do. And then after that, we want to care for the plants that are already in the field and make sure we're on top of our weeding and doing that on time. And then after that, we'll start seeding for more plants so that we're hopefully caring for what we've got. And then the weather is something that we dance around to. So we'll change our plan according to, it's much better to weed on a hot sunny day because the weeds die really fast rather than on a day when the soil's really soggy and everything's just going to re-root back down into the soil and all your energy is wasted. So we'll shuffle around our task list accordingly.
So you're definitely out and getting your hands in the dirt and totally in touch with what's going on in the natural world. And I imagine that is a really nice way to work. Is that something that's really important to you, to be outside as you work?
Yeah, I've been asked that before, and I think that, as of now, I really haven't experienced the alternative. So I think I should be thankful for what I have and the ability to be physical and use my brain and my body and interact with something that I love and am passionate about.
Yeah, it's great. And you were talking about getting food out for orders. And so you're actually selling to people in Floyd. And I was actually looking at your Facebook page, and I saw that we can order online at Field's Edge. You have a website. And then can you tell us about how we can order from you and come get it?
Sure, yeah. We're trying to make it easy for locals to come get what we're growing too. So we grow for wholesale and we pack cases and send them away to restaurants in Roanoke and distributors as well. But this is lots of good food grown organically, and so people around us want a way to get it. So we set up an online store at fieldsedgefarms.com.
Okay.
So people go on there and you can see everything that's fresh and select, 2 bunches of beets, 1 flank steak, or anything that we produce here will be on there. And then you can schedule to pick it up each Friday here at the farm.
Okay.
Which is when we'll pick it. So it'll be super fresh. You come to the farm on Friday. If you can't make it to the farm, which is south of Floyd, we can bring it to the farmer's market on a Saturday. So if you know you're going to the farmer's market, you can pre-order and we'll have a box with your name on it ready for you and already paid for.
And are you set up every week at the farmer's market?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tanya and Toby operate Wild Mountain Farms, and they have their own farm. And Tanya also works with us here on this farm, and they stop by and take our produce with them to fill out their table at the market. So you'll find Toby and Tanya there every Saturday with Field's Edge beef and Field's Edge produce.
Great. And is there a sign indicating that it's Field's Edge?
Yeah, there's a little sandwich board with a Field's Edge logo on it, and you can ask and see, but they grow really great stuff too and source from other farmers in the area as well.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so we can order online and pick up here or pick up at the farmer's market, and definitely encourage everyone to do that. It's a beautiful place to know that your food came out of this valley with so much history. It's really wonderful. And speaking of the history, I was hoping you could kind of share with our viewers a bit of history of this valley.
Yeah, I feel lucky to have plopped into it, but this valley has been in this Lesher family for over 125 years and been farmed by them for that time in lots of many different ways, always involving beef cattle, which continues today. And before that, there's even evidence that the native people of this area were also involved in agricultural activities on this land. So that feels really special, that across the ages it's been useful to people growing food and been a home in so many different ways. And I'm really impressed with Alice Slusher and the way that she has kept the history alive and the stories here of what their family has done. And it's so great to still have that connection, because so many families lose that when we're uprooted, but just the rootedness in this valley is really special. Yeah.
I agree. I was fortunate to get to spend some time with Alice at Indian Valley Elementary School. We have a program on a community show about that, where Alice Slusher and Janet Keith talked with the kindergarten class about the history of Indian Valley, and I was equally impressed with her knowledge and passion for the history of her home place, and you can really feel that being here. And you were mentioning earlier about the pottery and some of those things.
Yeah, in the collection of all the artifacts that have been found by the Slushers over this time, lots of time looking at the soil behind a plow, you'll find a lot of things. So some of what they found was pieces of pottery, and actually they were decorated.
Wow.
Maybe rolled with a corn cob, they think, or pressed with a fishing net. So decorated pieces of pottery, which according to the archaeologists indicate that there was a permanent settlement and agricultural activities, storing of things in vessels. Pretty neat.
So you're part of a long, long legacy of humans growing food in a beautiful valley.
Yeah.
It's pretty special.
Very special place.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for talking with us today and sharing a little piece of Fields Edge Farm with the community show. We're really grateful.
My pleasure. Thanks for your interest.
Yeah.
It means a lot.
We'll come back and see how you're doing in the spring, maybe.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Leaf Floyd carrot.
Oh, start breeding.
Yeah, go crazy with it.
Carrots that can wear pants.